The year was 1998, and the first pieces of the International Space Station began taking shape above the Earth. It was far too large to take up at once, so over the next 10+ years and dozens of missions, it expanded piece by piece. And from the very beginning, it was a collaborative effort, especially between Russia and the United States. Over the years, that relationship has continued to flourish despite whatever happened on the ground. The importance of progress in space trumped all else. But that idea is now being challenged, especially in light of Ukraine. CCTV's Sean Callebs has insight into a relationship that extends beyond planet Earth.
A new three-man crew will soon be heading to the International Space Station. While there may be no borders up here, there's no denying the dramatic shift in the political landscape back down on Earth. The question is whether unrest and international tension over Ukraine will affect the U.S. Russia space agreement. American astronaut Reed Wiseman is scheduled to make the next trip to the space station and has been training side by side with his Russian cosmonaut ally Maxim Suryaev for more than a year.
And the politics, for us, we put it aside. And we don't talk about it. We don't even think about it. We have a mission to fly into space. I do see it in the air here. There is definitely political tension. But on a personal level, it's just friends, instructors preparing to fly into space. And it's actually been really refreshing.
The U.S. countered Russia's elevated involvement in the Ukraine with punishing economic sanctions.
Remember, we'll pick up that adjustable fare lead on handrail 3060.
NASA then piled on, saying all high-level discussion regarding space has been suspended, and the U.S. agency will only talk to Russia about matters pertaining to the International Space Station.
I was kind of stunned to see that. We're not in a position of strength to leverage that. You know, we need them more than they need us right now.
That's because the only way U.S. astronauts can get to the ISS is to hitch a ride on the Soyuz. NASA mothballed its shuttle fleet in 2011 and now pays Russia nearly $71 million per flight to send an astronaut into space. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin reacted to the U.S. sanctions with a blistering tweet, writing, "After analyzing the sanctions against our space industry, I suggest the U.S. delivers its astronauts to the ISS with a trampoline."
So it wasn't surprising to me to see that, and I don't blame him on a certain level, because here we are, the United States, trying to leverage a weak position. It really wasn't well thought through.
A good gauge of the popularity of the U.S. space program are the crowds here at the National Air and Space Museum, always among the more popular museums in Washington, D.C. Still, having to depend exclusively on the Russians to ferry U.S. astronauts back and forth to the International Space Station is a sore point for many in this country. And some astronauts believe, given the delicate nature of international relationships, perhaps the U.S. should foster better relations with the Chinese Space Agency. Leroy Chow flew 4 times in space, including a 6-month stay on the ISS. He says it is time for NASA and other members of the International Space Station to broaden their horizons.
And I personally had been advocating for the last several years the possibility of bringing China in as a partner, because right now China is the only other entity that can launch astronauts into space.
I don't run this program, but I could not think of a reason not to expand and try to pull in as much international support as we could have. And if you can bring in other cultures into this who maybe think about things a little bit differently than you do, you never know when they're gonna bring the piece of the puzzle that just really has a great effect. So I say bring in as many as we can.
Encountering no issues so far.
At the end of the day, it takes both Russia and the U.S. to operate and maintain the ISS. One nation simply can't do it alone. But the last thing either needs is to push this marriage of convenience to the brink with so much at stake. Sean Callebs, CCTV, Washington.